What is up, my friend? Welcome to episode number 60, all about how to create a content marketing plan. I'm bringing on my good friend Amber Vilhauer to break it down. She's one of the experts to the experts. You'll see how amazing she is on this episode. And more importantly, you'll learn a whole lot of tips and strategies to creating a solid content marketing plan. This way, you're generating more leads, more exposure, more sales, making more impact with your message. So if you've ever wondered what strategies are the influencers using when it comes to their own marketing strategies, well, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Anthony John Amix Podcast, the one and only podcast designed to help you become unstoppable in life and business. My name is Anthony John Amix. My friends call me AJ, and my goal with this podcast is to help you remember who you truly are so you can maintain your center in the chaos, embody your potential, and unlock freedom in your life and business. That being said, let's get into today's show.
All right, welcome back. I'm really excited to have Amber join us today. I first met Amber back in 2015. I felt like since the first time that I met her, felt like I've just known her my entire life. I have so much respect for her and how she leads and fulfills things inside her business. And she's just an incredible human being, like outside her business as well. She focuses on helping impact-driven influencers, both big and small, get their message out to the world in the most efficient and powerful way through digital marketing opportunities. She had a big wake-up call after a traumatic rock bottom moment when she was 16 years old. She was just like badly beaten up by 5 girls at a party that had been created just for that purpose, to beat her up. And since that moment, decision by decision, day by day, moment by moment, Amber consciously faced her fears and stepped into her highest and best self. Her brave story is shared on podcast interviews and will be experienced in her second upcoming book release called Rescuing Me, A Teen's Journey from Lost to Found. And during her college years at the University of Arizona, where she studied marketing and graphic design, Amber actually sold Cutco Cutlery, which is like this international kitchenware product line. They sell knives, or really good knives, by the way, if you've never had any. And as a young 20-year-old, Amber achieved the highest sales level in the company and also moved through the management levels very quickly. And within 2 years, she drove the success of a 13-office division across 4 states, managed more than 30 receptionists, and broke several national records. Amber also uncovered her passion and talent for public speaking. She facilitated daily 25-person group interviews, weekly 3-day training seminars, spoke regularly on stages for their 300-person conferences, and also ran many full-day workshops. At 24 years old, Amber was ready for her next challenge, so she pivoted and organized 2 business conferences, teaching entrepreneurs how to grow their business online with some of the world's leading online marketers. And it was then in 2007 that NGNG Enterprises, Inc., standing for No Guts, No Glory, was born. And over the past decade, Amber has been on a relentless pursuit to help influencers overcome their fears and create high impact in the industry, just as she has done herself. Her gift for building relationships, creativity, innovative strategy, systems, and speed offers game-changing support to her visionary clients. Now, before I bring Amber on, I don't know if you've had the chance yet or not, but I have a pretty amazing group that's full of some pretty high-level, high-achieving people, and it's just full of training, just packed full of training to help you take your life and business to the next level. So from deep dive personal development stuff to the latest marketing strategies that's working, from sales trainings to like just kind of the whole gamut. You can find all of that stuff and more inside my Facebook community called Shift 101. Simply go to ajamix.com/community and hit the little join button now to join. Again, just go to ajamix.com/community to join Shift 101 and get instant access to the trainings. Now, with that being said, let's get into today's content and bring today's guest onto the show. Amber, what's up? Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. You know I love you. I'm happy to be here.
Well, thank you. You have made me some money every time I reach out to you. I'm like, hey, can I pay you $250? And you're like, of course. And we have like a conversation and you're like, hey, go do this thing. I'm like, I'll go do the thing. And that makes me like $1,200. So, you know, I like paying you and taking your advice when I take it.
It's good to invest in Amber.
I would highly recommend it. So today we're going to be talking about like how to create a content marketing plan. We'll get into that. But I didn't know this about you until I started doing some research. I knew you're like super spiritual, super like this, like tuned in, plugged in, whatever we want to call it. Just like a bright light is what I would say. But I didn't know like what your journey was to get there until I read your little bio on the website where you talked about being beaten up. I think it was by 5 girls or 6 girls. I think it was 5. So I want to know, how did that become a turning point for you?
Yeah. So I was never really well liked in school. I just never really fit in. And I never really understood why. So it was always kind of a source of sadness for me. Um, but it really kind of shifted when I turned 13 and I went into this tiny little private school, and there were a bunch of rich kids, and it just sort of exaggerated what I had already felt growing up. And so then that kind of progressed. But as I went through the years, I just started to turn inward, and I was just suffering, and it got harder and harder. And I felt more and more worthless, to be honest. Like I couldn't find my place in the world, and I didn't feel seen or heard or valued. I mean, and I came from a loving home, so it's not anything related to that. It's just that my school experience was terrible. And the more I went inward and suffered, the more this reality unfolded in front of me that just got worse and worse too. And it did culminate one night when I was 16, and I walked into a party, and I didn't realize that that party had been set up for me. And these five girls came in, and they were pushing me around and ultimately beat me up that night. And it was all over just people picking on me. And kids do stupid things, right?
Totally.
So whatever, it's not about that moment,
Sure.
but it's about what that moment created in my life. And for me, it created a moment where I turned inward and I really faced myself, like really faced myself. And some people will go an entire lifetime without ever really doing it.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I just thought, my gosh, is this my life? Like, is this the way it's going to be? And the answer to that just scared me so much. I mean, it scared me straight. So then I thought, well, who would I have to be somebody that I could be proud of? Like, how can I be proud of myself? And I just started thinking about this person that I would be proud to be. And boy, I can tell you that I had a lot of work to turn into that person. And so what you saw over the next 2 years is me digging my way out of this enormous hole of a life that I felt like inside. And day by day, decision by decision, I started making decisions to turn into that person. And by the time I graduated from high school, I graduated with honors. I repaired the relationship with my family, and I repaired the relationship within myself. But it wasn't until right after about that time, I got a job selling Cutco cutlery, high-end kitchen knives. And in that position, that culture is remarkable. There's nothing like it on the planet. And if you ever meet a Cutco person, they'll tell you the same thing. But in that culture, all of a sudden, they saw this potential in me that I didn't even know was there. And I felt heard and seen and valued. And so they started just pouring this training into me. And a lot of it was mindset training.
Mm.
Honestly, I didn't call it that back then. I didn't know what it was, and I didn't care. I was just like, I'll do whatever you tell me to do. And they honestly gave me this conditioning that would set me up for the success in the rest of my life. They helped me to believe in myself. They taught me entrepreneurship. Out of that, I grew my company, and now I get to talk to awesome people like you. It's great.
So what led you to go inward besides just being at a pit? Like, was there something within you that guided you to looking deeper? Was it your family? Was it the culture you grew up in? I'm curious, like, what led you? And there's a reason I'm asking this, because there's a certain way that I have looked at life over and over again, and I have no logic to it. It's just something within me that guides me to look at a certain thing or do a certain thing a different way than most people would probably handle certain situations. Is it similar to you, or is it something completely different?
I think it depends. I can tell you though, in that moment, it just was natural in me. Now I feel like I have more wisdom and life experience. I just have more tools in my toolbox.
Sure.
Introspection is something that I do on a daily basis. And I have a lot more emotional wisdom and range now. I understand my energy levels in my body and how I experience things. But back then, I mean, I probably had some foundation of that thanks to my parents, but honestly, I literally got jumped. I got kicked out of me. And in that moment, there was just nothing left except this question mark. So it I didn't even second guess it or question it or even look at it more than just, out of maybe necessity. I was in survival mode of like, how do I live? Because if I stay down this road, I'm probably not going to live for very long. That's about the
Gotcha.
conversation I had.
Gotcha. Thanks for sharing. And here's a
Yeah.
selfish question for me because I have a daughter. She's 19 months old. Do you think if you would have had martial arts training up to that point, it would have made your life different?
No.
Okay.
And I can say that because I actually was taking martial arts
Mm,
training at that time. Now, I will say it was probably a little bit more of an artistic one. It was Kenpo karate. And but there was definitely an emphasis on self-defense, and it was just, I don't know. I actually got so involved that I started teaching classes to little kids, and that was the one positive outlet that I had that kind of grounded me in the world, probably.
okay.
But honestly, sometimes the soul just has to go through a dark night and dark valley. And I think I can now see the value in experiencing such a dark time. I mean, it really enabled me to have incredible success in the world that I live in today, like in what I do today, which is working with influencers. And when you're working with influencers, people who are speaking and authors and coaches, like it requires you to have an emotional intelligence that is pretty rare. Like, to be able to deeply see into their experience and to offer them marketing advice that's actually going to do something for their platform, and to breathe validation into them so that they are strong to go out into the masses and face that uncertainty and face all of that chaos to make the world a better place. Like, it takes a very strong, emotionally intelligent person to be in that role. It is a tremendous responsibility. Like, I feel it every minute of every day. I have people's lives in my hands. So this is more than just, well, you should repurpose your content. Like, I'm responsible for a lot. And therefore, every day I just think, thank goodness that I went through that. Like, that was the best thing that could have prepared me for this role now. So I don't know. I don't know what helps a person. Maybe you just have to go through it too.
I would agree. I mean, there's some belief that there's soul contracts at work on the planet, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but there's a little bit of theory about some of that. So, how much of this of the business game do you think is actually spiritual? Like, is it just like do? Is it just mindset, or is there a combination of some being stuff as well?
Um, for me personally, I feel very holistic in my approach or my belief system around it. For me, I think it starts with, who do I want to be? How do I want to show up in the world? Which is the spiritual journey in my mind. I think that if I were not very clear in my purpose and my mission and what I'm here to say, my positioning, what I want to take a stand for, my core values, that absolutely is going to have an impact on the success of my business, right?
Yeah.
When you have somebody who's kind of hasn't had the depth of experience and they're kind of like, they don't really know what their core values, they might know what they like, what makes them feel good to a point, or they don't have a huge emotional range, or they're not very introspective. What happens is, when it comes to your marketing, you sound a little vanilla. You sound a little general. And people are like, oh, he's a nice dude. Like, cool. But it's not like, oh my God, I love this guy. Beth, do you know about this guy? You got to know about this guy. Right. So if you want to have people really lit up by you, then that's where the spiritual journey comes in, because a Facebook ad or a funnel is probably not going to accomplish that emotional reaction to what you're doing. But if you do the work on you, and by the way, this is a lifelong process, so it happens in stages. It's not like you can just check off the box like, cool, been there, done that, I'm ready now. But then I think it just adds a depth and a uniqueness to your marketing that's going to attract in more qualified people. So right now, if you're thinking to yourself like, gosh, I just have an inconsistent mix of people coming to my door, and some of them I really like and some of them not so much, then that is a clear indication that you have some work to do in your messaging and your positioning and in your marketing. The more you share your uniqueness and who you naturally are and what your beliefs are with the world, you'll attract the right people in, and they will be ready to work with you. They can't wait to work with you. In fact, they're already referring people before they even sign on the dotted line with you, right? That's the kind of connection and relationship that's possible. So yeah, I think it starts with spiritual. Then there's a science and an art, and it all works together to have a successful
Absolutely.
business.
So you talked about connection. So how important is content to to increasing connection to growing the business in today's marketplace?
Well, content is the vehicle, I think, that allows the connection to occur, right? Content could be this podcast interview, right? This is a content delivery mechanism that's going to enable me to more directly connect with people in my following as I share this interview with them, or within your following, or people that neither of us know yet, but through sharing and social media will engage with new people. And so that is the delivery mechanism, but there's a whole lot of work that can be done to support that connection and actually happening. And here again, I think it definitely starts on more of the spiritual side of just deciding who you want to be, how you want to show up in the world. Because in my mind, if I had to define what connection is, it's the exchange. So two people, it's an exchange of a sought after value. Meaning that if I'm really clear on who I am, and let's say that I really value excellence, and I'm having this conversation with you, and you share some story or some instance of that excellence is a value to you, right? Maybe you're telling me a story of how you onboarded a client and you were very particular about the way that you onboarded them and what their experience was like. Now we have that in common, and it's just a natural thing that occurs. It's in a click, like a connection click. And all of a sudden, because we share the same value, we exchange that, and in that moment, that's when the connection occurs. So that can happen whether it's on a video, whether it's on a sales conversation. It can happen in text too. That's why the more clear that you are on what you value, and then you express that through these different content vehicles, then the people coming in that match that value will feel connected to you. And after that, it becomes far easier to grow your business.
Do you think when it comes to growing a business and about values, somebody should only work with somebody who's congruent with those values, or can they work with other people who are not congruent with those values?
Not necessarily. I just believe that the more values you share, the better the relationship is going to go, right?
Of
You'll feel
course.
like, I can't even believe the people I get to work with.
Yeah.
And by the way, that's actually how I believe every single day. Each call is better than the next. And I just think like, this is insane that I am connected with this many amazing people. And it's because I have gotten really clear over the years. But it's not to say like you could maybe share 30% of the values that, we have 30% in common. So perfect. That's more than enough to have a great relationship. But if we had 80% in common, well, it would just be fireworks going off. We couldn't get enough of each other, right?
We'd be besties.
Yeah, so it's okay.
How do you think somebody cuts through the noise with content? I mean, everybody's creating content from the palm of their hand. How are they going to stand out today?
Well, gosh, I feel like I'm a broken record. Definitely the more clear you are on your positioning, like your stance in the world, so for me, let me see if I can come up with an example. Okay, here's a good example. I build websites, right? Launched almost 1,000 of them over the years. And there are how many millions of web designers in the world today? So how on earth could I compete with that? Forget about it, right? I might as well just give up and go try something else. Or I could think, well, what do I believe about websites? Like, what is the thing that I want to take a stand for? Now, Amber's personal belief about websites is that they should be experiential. Meaning that when a visitor lands on that website, I want to experience you before I have to read who you are and what you can do for me. And it's that experience that creates that connection and bond that really helps the whole customer journey process, right? So that's something that I can take a stand for. And the more I articulate that in the marketplace, the more it starts to feel different. And you might resonate with that or not. You might think I'm cuckoo. And if you don't like that, then you'll head on to the next guy who has a different belief about websites. So I do think that your best bet moving forward with any kind of marketing is to take a stand for something. And it doesn't have to be a huge global, stance in something that is very risky for you to share with the world. I mean, you got to do you. But for me, even just little ways of thinking about things can make a huge impact in a social media post, right? Just sharing one viewpoint, but something that you're not vanilla about. It's like something that you absolutely believe that, of course, websites need to be experiential. There's no other way. And when you really believe that, it changes the way that people interact with your content for sure. Whether they want a website or not, they're still going to feel something is different about it.
I like this idea of thinking things should be experiential, because I always say, like,
Thank you.
technology,
You would be right.
social media, they're all just tools that essentially are amplifying who we are as a human being. Like, that's like, at the end of the day, that's all they're doing. And if we're a shitty human being, then we're just amplifying shittiness. But if we're pretty awesome, then we're kind of amplifying some goodness. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And so the website's the same thing. Like, if you can capture those values that you talked about, then it's letting somebody have an experience of you, which then builds trust and respect at a deeper level, which then allows there to be exchange, whether that's value exchange, whether that's a joint venture exchange. Just opportunities are able to be exchanged when we're amplifying who we're being into the marketplace. So I like that you're talking about experience personally.
Well, and honestly, that's the word that I am promoting like crazy right now. What experience are you giving to people? Like, right now, you and I, we're in this podcast interview and we are creating an experience for somebody. And when this is behind us, then I'm going to go and I'm going to send an email to somebody. And here's the thing, like, especially over email, you get people who are like, this is what I need, blah. And it's like, what kind of an experience are you giving to that person? So for me, I'm going to take the extra half second and I'm going to add a little smiley face on my email, because you know what? It makes people smile. It gives them a feeling. I'm elevating every experience. That's what I'm all about it. So you have that opportunity in a text message, in a video, in a chat to a team member. Sometimes when we're talking to the same people every day, day in, day out, we start getting really short in our messaging, like boop, boop, boop. And there's something to that, right? I feel comfortable with you, so I don't have to be super flowery with you. But at the same time, like, it's mindfulness. What experience am I creating in every moment of every day? Who's my audience? What do I want them to feel? And for me, I want people to feel seen and heard and loved and valued. And now, because of my story, you know why that matters to me so much. So just be thinking about it. Like, you don't have to make it the most perfect experience, but I do want you to know that it's going to be an experience whether you put intention behind it or not.
Yeah. Is there any science to creating like an experiential content marketing plan? Is there any steps or any science to that?
I don't know. I mean, for me, I think video is just the way to do it. So I don't know if there's a science behind Amber's own science. But for me, when I approach content marketing, which is giving free content outline or online, honestly, you want to do your content marketing because it makes companies like Google and YouTube and Facebook more valuable. They want to stay in business, so they want that value from you. So you've got to do a lot of content marketing. And for me, if I want to be even more experiential about it, it's got to be through video, right? When you're reading a text message or an email or a chat or whatever it is, tone is really hard to pick up on. And honestly, I look at what's happening in social media right now, and I think that things would be at least some percentage less chaotic if we understood somebody's tonality behind what they were saying. Because otherwise you just see text and it's like, look at this jerk, what he was just saying, and it's just powering all of this chaos and energy and misunderstanding everywhere, right?
Totally.
With video, it's hard to do that, right? Because you can see my smile. I'm projecting energy into the camera. So for me, the science behind having a more successful content marketing strategy is it should always start with video. And in a perfect world, it would be video that's being live streamed, because live streaming is viewed more than 6 times over any other form of media. That was a stat from just before COVID. So now I can't even imagine what it is, but people want real. They want real now. So give them real. And video is going to help you do that. Then simply take the video on the live stream and repurpose it to get any blogging done or social media or email marketing if you can.
So what about the writers? What about the people who are naturally born writers? They want to go down the pathway, and maybe they already have, and they are like brilliant writers. Are they just like, nope, can't do writing? Like, you should just go ahead and go all in on video because that's the way to amplify and give people an insight. Or I'm just curious. Or is there a way to actually use written word to actually still create an experience?
Oh, absolutely. Sure. I think it's just it can be more challenging to create certain experiences through the written word, right? But I mean, we look at fiction-based authors. They create remarkable experiences with the written word. So by all means, like, do you, but I'm just saying, like, and in terms of online format, like, people are going to get to know you faster. They're going to create connections with you faster. They're going to build up the know, like, trust faster with video. But you could choose not to do it. It's just going to take you a little bit longer, or you're going to have to put some more grit or art. You're going to have to put some more art into your writing to make that same connection.
That makes sense. Makes sense. What are some like big mistakes people make when it comes to, their content marketing plan?
Not having one, not doing it consistently, not doing it frequently, doing it themselves, right? So shame on you if you're doing your own content marketing. Even if you are a solopreneur, like, have somebody else do it. You could actually make more money by having somebody else do it. I came up to this point 6 years ago, maybe I lost track, too many years ago. It was out of necessity. I was in my business and I was trying to do it all. I was doing my own marketing and doing the sales, and I had a hand in a lot of the fulfillment, and I was busy. Now, I like being busy, but I had to get real. I had to look at my time and think, what's the best use of my time? And what I came up with is like, okay, doing the videos, doing the interviews, that's a great use of my time. So I do those constantly, which is why my video, like, I have a whole background set up, my camera's here. I go live or record videos many, many times every single day. But the rest of it, like, if I could start with a video, could I just document what I wanted done with that video in such depth, in such detail, that somebody else could do it for me? And when you're documenting for somebody else what you want them to do, you have to tell them not just what to do, but why. You've got to develop their thought leadership a bit. So for example, you could say, like, okay, after you take my video, I want you to watch it, and then I want you to create this piece of artwork. Now, here's what matters about this artwork, and here's why it matters that I want you to do it this specific way. Like, I want the text to be big. The reason why is because if you shrink that artwork down to a little thumbnail, I still want the words visible. When you tell people why, they get it. Now they can start to think and behave and make decisions the way that you would want them to. So that's just like an aside. But what I ended up doing is I recorded a bunch of videos that were education-based, baked in some stories, some inspiration, because people love that. Documented what I wanted my assistant to do from there. I wanted her to do keyword research, craft a blog post. And the beautiful thing is, because it was a summary of my video, she would listen to the video and use my language to write the blog post. So I didn't have to worry if she was the world's best writer. I just wanted her to have good listening skills and transcription skills, basically. And then I would have her do my social media and my email marketing. And I was able to prove that I could absolutely delegate all of that out. Years later, I love it. I'll be on a sales call or something and someone will say, gosh, Amber, I love your Instagram page. Like, I loved that video that you posted. It was amazing. And I'm thinking, I don't know what he's even, so I'll like quickly pull up my Instagram just to act intelligent because my team did that for me. So you just have to, you get to a place that you can work smarter, not harder. You can achieve total brand consistency by having somebody else put it out there. You just need to give them proper training. And that should free you up to focus on building relationships and speaking and creating high level content that only you can create.
Awesome. When it comes to creating or hiring people, I don't want to get into like hiring, but like having them do a lot of the distribution and the creating of the emails and like a lot of like the minutia part of content creating, I guess we could call it that.
Yeah.
Do you find it's easiest if somebody has like a content strategy where one thing is kind of the linchpin? So for instance, let's say this podcast would be the linchpin, 2 episodes a week. And then from this, the creation of that content, that person then can extrapolate the social media posts, the emails, the Instagram, but it's almost like whatever the content strategy is, whether it's YouTube or a podcast or written word, it doesn't matter. We have like an intent focused of like, hey, this is the linchpin in which everything hinges around. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Yes. So for you, I love that you're doing a video-based podcast because you can extract out the audio, you can optimize the video on YouTube, you're repurposing both into a show notes or a blog post. And then out of that content, now you can create a structure or a process around what kind of social media you want to do with it. And so it could be like, I want to do a story a week. I want to do a few teaching points. I want to do a poll. I want to do this or that or the other thing. And your social media person can now listen to the podcast. They can extract out bits while they're listening. That becomes your social media. Then once a week, have them send an email to your email list. It's like, oh my gosh, you don't want to miss this episode. We talked about these things. You're going to love this point. Here's a direct quote. Go to our website. And now it's great because in all ways, you're driving everybody back to the website where now they're reminded of your value. Like, oh yeah, there was that course. I should totally sign up for that course. I need it now. Right. And now it's this beautiful harmony. And all you had to do was record a video podcast episode, twice or whatever. And this is exactly what I figured out all those years ago. I documented it. And it was so funny because it was 2 years ago that I was doing a coaching call. And I was talking to this guy, Dr. Garrick Vosloo, and he had these problems. He was having problems getting people into this premium course that he had built. So he had like a lead generation problem. And I said, oh, Garrick, you should just do what I've been doing. It works extremely well. I don't even have to worry about where my next client is coming from. And he said, Amber, that's brilliant. Why aren't you telling other people about that? And I thought, I have no idea because I build websites. And it's just one of those things that like anything you take for granted or you think is easy or doesn't matter, that's probably what you need to be paying attention to. So I took my process and I put it into an online product now that I call Leverage to Scale. We've been live for 2 years now, and it trains virtual assistants on your team how to do all of this for you. Because the thing is like a business owner's never going to document all of that. They're just not going to. A very small percentage will actually commit and have the discipline to sit down and document something like a whole content marketing procedure map. Come on. And the other problem that I found is that business owners don't have the time and oftentimes the desire to stay on top of internet marketing trends and changes. The online world is constantly changing. So how are you going to stay on top of everything? And you can't expect that the virtual assistant is going to do that, right? They're not really equipped usually to stay on top of trends in that way. So I just got to all of a sudden see the gap in the marketplace, and that's the gap I filled. So now I go around telling people like, it's not even about getting into my system. It's about having a system that allows somebody to help you in getting this work done for you. So you can just do more of it.
Awesome. And then with the leverage to scale piece, is it all organic, or do you think people should be running ads to their content as well? Or is that just dependent upon, just different from person to person?
Everybody required should have content marketing in my mind. Now, this is a belief that I had from 14 years ago when I started online. Oh, it was forever ago. This was back when like websites were these long form sales pages. I mean, it was a very different world back then. And what all the big millionaire people back then, the Frank Kerns of the world and Armin Morans, what they said is that you've got to dominate search engines, blogging, search engine optimization, and then it morphed into video and more social media. I mean, this stuff has been around since the internet started, and there's a reason for that. Every time you produce a piece of content, you are making, like I said, Google, YouTube, Facebook more valuable. So you have to do content marketing. You're crazy if you don't do it. Now, once you get a team member to take that monkey off your back, then absolutely, what else can I do? Well, I happen to think that speaking is one of the best things that you can do to grow your business. Podcasts, stages, small groups, masterminds, live streaming, anything like that. Anytime you are speaking, it's huge in terms of generating traffic back to your website. And I think that with paid advertising, I do think that there's a place for it. I don't think that everybody needs it in the way that I believe they do the first two. I think if you have a scalable product, right? You created a course, you created like a back-end membership portal perhaps, or you have a webinar, absolutely try paid advertising. I would not rely on that to be your only source of traffic ever. But I think that if you figure out how to do it, you have the right support, you have the budget to invest, and you want to scale, that's a great way to do it. It's just quite risky.
Yeah, it makes sense. And let's talk about consistency a little bit, because we talked about creating content marketing plan. I mean, it's pretty darn simple. Pick at least one day of the week or 2 times a week. Just pick something and commit to it, right? And then you do it, and then they could go buy or purchase your program, leverage the scale, and then they could have the whole team, and then they're kind of good to go. But the problem is people aren't consistent. Like they get on the content thing for 2 weeks, for 3 weeks. They're not in it for like, hey, I'm going to do this thing for a year, because, and I've said this on this podcast over and over and over again, it's hard to do this sometimes. Like I do a Sunday sermon episode every Sunday. It's a solo show where it's more like a church service, but it's definitely like the blend of business and spirituality. But there's times where I'm like, I don't want to do a Sunday sermon. And it's like, I'm either committed to do it or I'm not. And after getting it out of me, I'm never like, I should never have done that one. I'm always like, hey, that was pretty good. That was worth the work. But it requires a commitment, like a big commitment. So what advice do you have for people coming into this game to actually commit to playing the game for, like, especially if you're in the online space? I feel like it's a lifetime. Like as long as you're going to have an online business, it's a pretty big commitment.
Mm-hmm. Great. I'm so glad that you brought this up. I think that the reason people start and stop is because they don't understand the value behind it. And, they heard somewhere they should have a blog. So fine, I'll try to make a few blog posts. And they've put some content out there and maybe they're like, oh, that was actually pretty good. But they didn't optimize that blog post because they didn't know how to. So then they do it again. And by that point, they've done 3, 4, and they think, oh, I didn't get a flood of traffic to my website. I didn't get 500 comments per post like Marie Forleo does. I guess it's just not going to work for me. So I'm over it. I mean, that's what honestly happens. And there's a few things to keep in mind. Like number one, it takes time. Nobody is going to like just decide to start blogging and see overnight success with it. Like if you think anything can happen that way online, those days are long gone, especially now that COVID has happened. Everybody's online now. And so the competition is only more fierce. Like it's going to be harder and harder and harder to get rankings and organic traffic. That's why consistency is the way. And frequency is the other side of that conversation too. The more frequently you do anything, the more you're going to get results from it. So if I blog twice a week, I'm going to get results faster than if I only do it once a week. The frequency is really up to you and your bandwidth, but just remember, if you ever want to really dial up your results, you got to be more frequent about it. But never, ever, ever stop being consistent. It's important for algorithms in social media and in search engines to have you prove to them that you're going to be consistent, right? Because they're not just going to give their precious traffic to anybody. They're going to give it to the people that are consistently adding value to them. It's a reward, right? So if you look at it like a reward system, then you'll think, oh, okay, so I do need to be in this for the long term. But here's what I figured out. I could not sit down and commit to doing like a video a week. I'm too busy, right? And look, let's just be honest. Some days we're on, some days we're just like, ugh, I just don't feel like it today. I need some me time, right?
Yep.
I've been giving so much. And so I felt really inconsistent in my marketing. And I thought, this is not going to work. That's when I got the idea to batch record. In fact, just yesterday, I batch recorded, what was it, like 10 videos. Now I don't have to think about it for 10 weeks. I'm good for 10 weeks. So as long as at some point in the next 9 weeks, I can feel like it again, then I'll record another batch and give it to my team. And then I won't have to think about it again for a while. If you are doing a live show, of course, you can't do that. Like I actually, just before this recording, I did a live stream interview with 3 people. But I actually really look forward to doing the live ones because it's all about relationships and those are fun. But, and the last thing I'll say is don't be afraid to get off schedule every once in a while. Like if you need some you time, take it, because your people will, first of all, respect that in you if you're just honest about it. And, your people are going to want the best from you. So make sure you're taking care of you first. But batch record, delegate it to somebody else, then we don't even have to worry about it.
Awesome. I love it. I like the idea of batching. I batch too. It just makes life so much easier, so much easier. What is like a runway period in which somebody who's going to decide to go all in on content, like, is there a certain number they should be like, cool, I'm going to do this consistently for X amount of time? Or should they just be like, nope, I'm in it forever? Like, is there a certain way to think about that?
Yeah, forever. That's it. That's the only way to think about it. And I'll give you a great story. I have a client named Brian, and he came to me and said, okay, Amber, I really am like, I want more clients. What do I do? And I gave him the content marketing strategy. Within 2 months, I think it was 2 months of consistently putting the whole process I just shared with you, video to repurpose, the blog post, the email marketing, social media. After 2 months, he experienced a quite significant spike. Now, he is a business consultant, so there's a measure of competition there for sure. But he does have a little bit of uniqueness. He's got a great message too, so that worked to his advantage. But anyway, had that little spike, more than little, and then kind of rode that forward for the rest of the year. And he's like, wow, this is great. I have tons of clients. I'm good. In fact, I feel so good about my business right now that I'm just going to stop. And I said, Brian, don't stop. Whatever you do, I'm telling you, I'm warning you, do not stop. And he's like, I'm fine. I'm going to stop. And he did. And it was a month later, just for fun, I went back and I looked at his analytics report. And what you saw was this climb, and then it just dropped like a cliff. It was unbelievable looking at how quickly he had lost every ounce of momentum that he had built up over that year. Every single ounce of it was gone. So it was about a month after that, and he called me and he's like, Amber, I think there's something wrong with my website analytics report. And I was like, it's not the problem with Google, dude. Like, it's because you stopped. And then he started, and he had to climb that hill all over again. I mean, you can't even make this stuff up, but it's like, hey, if you're going to stop making these organizations valuable, then they're going to cut off that supply that you've been leaning on too. So forever, you got to keep going.
Well, the thing about that too is there's a little bit of like universal physics laws that work there too, because the hardest part is generating the momentum. Like there's that old illustration
Totally.
I think of like that grinder. I don't know what it was called, but this is like this ginormous rock that would grind mill or whatever, and it would take, I don't remember how many oxen to get it going, like 8 or 10, a lot of cows, and they'd have to be struggling, all of them, and then over time you could start pulling off oxen at a time until just one cow could turn the whole machine. But it took all of these cows to get the whole grindstone or whatever that thing's called, like going. And I think oftentimes it's content's this way too. Like it takes so much energy, so much bandwidth to get it going, even if it's 2 months or whatever that commitment is. But then once you have the team in place, commitment in place, the habits are formed, then it's like just part of the thing that you do. And you usually keep that momentum going, because so many people, like you said, they start, stop. And that's why they're like, oh, this is exhausting. Stop stopping.
Well, and there have been times too where, gosh, several times where I thought, oh my gosh, I have too much interest right now. And then I had to I'd ease off the amount of marketing that I was doing, because honestly, it was overwhelming. And then I would kind of ramp back up. I never stopped though. Live streaming is a perfect example of that. So right when COVID hit, I just felt this calling to lead. And I had been doing a lot of research and work and figuring out live streaming and how to optimize it and get it to go viral. So I started this live stream show. I called it Elevate Series, and I was trying to help people understand how to navigate mentally and professionally through this crazy time that we went through. And so when we went live, I interviewed 40 speakers in 2 weeks. And just in the first 11 business days, I worked my ass off. Like, it was a lot of work, but it was totally worth it. I just felt like I was doing the right thing. And within 11 business days, my reach grew by 4,200%. My engagement grew by 700% in 11 days, because I was just boom, 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 boom. It was craziness. And then all of a sudden, I started just getting this huge wave of attention. And I was like, I got to slow this thing down a little bit. And so I did. And now I'm just doing one a week. But honestly, like, I'm good at one a week even. So you really can, as long as you just keep it moving, you'll be fine. Just don't stop.
Awesome. If you could go back in time and give your younger self some wisdom that would help her collapse time and get results faster, what would you tell her?
Oh my gosh, that's such a good question. Gosh, honestly, I would have told myself to look inward first. I guess I just would have done that. Like, stop feeling like the world is out to get you, and it's not, and you have a choice here. So let's do something about it. And if I had just known that, then the second thing, even though you asked me for one, but I'm taking two, is that I would have focused on service sooner. I would have focused on giving to other people in a bigger way sooner. I think I was so hurt and so lost and scared and such a mess. I didn't know what else to do. I felt like hiding, and hiding is not in service to anybody. And so I would have just calmed down a bit, realized that I wasn't being attacked. It's okay. And I would have just turned that pain into love and projected it outward into service without expectation of a certain outcome or reward for it. But that is what I've learned now is just the fastest way to a healthy life.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks for sharing. I always like that question of what people are going to share. If you guys want to learn more about Amber, AmberVilhauer.com. That's Amber, VILHAUER.com. She has a 40-minute deep dive training on how to attract qualified buyers, which is important because, let's be honest, you got to make some Skrilla. You got to put some money in the bank. So if you want to learn how to attract some more qualified leads, buyers, AmberVilhauer.com/marketing course, AmberVilhauer.com/marketing course. So Amber, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah, this was fun. I also appreciate that final question too. And just all the value you're giving to people. Keep going. The world needs you.
Thank you. Well, there you have it, my friend, Amber Vilhauer. I told you she's an incredible human being and full of so much wisdom about this online business game. If you've enjoyed this episode and inspired you some way, I'd love to hear your thoughts and what your biggest takeaways were from this episode. Simply take a screenshot of you listening on your device, post it to your Instagram stories, and tag me on Instagram. Just say @AJAmix. That's my Instagram handle. So thank you so much for being here, my friend. Until next time, I'm out. Peace.
Well, that's all I've got for this episode of the Anthony John Amix podcast, but we have plenty more to help you become unstoppable in life and business. So head on over to ajamix.com for exclusive resources, information, and tools to help you break through to a new level of freedom, purpose, and success. I look forward to having you back for the next episode. Bye for now.